Get in the picture. I am your host, Sharon Hooker, the Style and Body Confidence Coach and the creator and the founder of the Get in the Picture movement. And if you are ready to get into the picture of your life, physically and metaphorically, if you're ready to stop erasing your history, ready to stop playing the waiting game, and you're ready to show up and be seen with style and confidence, then you're in the right place. Let's go. Hi, I want a huge welcome to Laura O'Malley. She is the first guest on the Get in the Picture podcast. So thank you so much, Laura, for joining me today. And Laura, I is Red Raw podcaster, a podcaster. I was going, really, should I have a professional podcaster as my first guest? And comedian, and mom of two. Anything else you want to add? Oh, you have three. Yes, I forgot. Where's Freddie?
Freddie's downstairs with his dad. He's
having
some quality dad time this morning.
Used to seeing Freddie on
attached to me. No, there are three of them now.
Three of them. Yes. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, that's it. That about sums it up at the moment. Definitely, I have been other things in my time, but those are the ones that I am now.
And I love that involvement, because we are different things at different times, and we have different seasons. And I was a stay-at-home mom for I had 3.5, and I worked in the financial services on the Mall. So I love that we're not one thing, that we evolve through different.
Totally. I suppose, like, I did drama and theatre studies in college and kind of thought that I would be an actor. And there's a part of me is like, that kind of part of me is put away in a cupboard for the time being, but I might shake it off in a couple of years, or I might never look at it again. But I suppose the main thing always is that I am the mom of three, and kind of keeping a leg in the entertainment industry, as in whatever shape that leg takes, and just kind of trying to keep that a little bit afloat, so that it's not so that I suppose so that I don't have a mountain to climb in years to come, when the kids are gone to secondary school or whatever, or when they don't need me as much.
And there is I'd say mine are young adults now, but there is that it's labor intensive when they're small, and it's kind of mentally intensive when they're big. You know what I mean? So there's a period in between, Laura.
Yes, that in between period. I was only saying it to my husband the other day, is that, like, the unique kind of thing about, we say, my job is that, because this is how it came up. I did 2 stand-up gigs, we'd say, last weekend. And when I came back from them, I was like, there are comedians that are on the road the whole time, that, like, we say Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they're definitely gigging. They might have been one on Wednesday as well. They're all over the country or whatever. And I just had such a realization that at that gig, that I'm like, it's okay that that's not the space that I'm in at the moment, because there's no pressure in terms of time on my career. Like, as in, you could be a stand-up comedian in your 60s. You could suddenly get a burst of acting in your, like, late 50s. There might not be as many roles for you, but that's an issue that hopefully will be resolved. But, like, I had to take that pressure off myself, because I think you can be kind of like watching everybody else. I'm 39. You can be watching everyone else around you kind of like reaching high points in their career or whatever. And I'm kind of like, well, mine isn't time sensitive. I can keep doing versions of this for years and years and years. And also, there's never an end point either. So I'm quite happy that I've been able to I'll always be able to say that I was there for all of my children's childhood. And it was the same, like, I had been working on breakfast radio in Cork, and just shortly before I had Freddie, I left. And even I was going to go, like, as in, if I hadn't left, I would have been faced with kind of working with a small baby. And I was already starting to be a bit fretful that he wouldn't get the same as the other 2 babies had gotten. So even though it was a bit of an upheaval at the time, I was very glad that I'm free to be here for him for the first, kind of formative years of his life. Look, let's be honest about it, Sharon. It's because my husband has a good job. Do you know? It'd be another situation if it was falling to me to be the sole breadwinner. I'd have to upskill, and I'd have to go do a course and all that. But, like, I'm in that position that I can be our childcare, we'll say, and save us that money for the time being. And I'm very happy. Like, you have to have to settle myself every now and again because I have that
Mhm.
kind of artistic soul that like needs a clap once a week from a big audience. So I have to settle myself and say like you're doing the good work of rearing your babies
Yeah.
and that can be equally as for that should be held in the same esteem as somebody who's just after getting a big deal in a advertising company or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in, we need to be brave enough to say that at the moment that's my priority and it's as equally valid as
Absolutely.
anything
I think,
else.
like, I think if we all just stay in our own lane and mind our own business, being
Yeah,
honest, like I know, no, like whether somebody goes to work, whether somebody doesn't, whether somebody does part time, whether somebody stays at home,
yeah,
it's just all just clap and support each other because there's no right or wrong. You know what I mean?
absolutely
There's
not.
no right or wrong.
And who cares? Like, as in, do what you
Absolutely.
need to, and for yourself to accept that you're at the point in your life where this is happening. Like, at the moment, my life is, dropping to summer camps and, dropping to school and having uniforms ready and, doing nappies. Like, that is the kind of main way my day is at the moment. But for any like young mums or anything out there to know that that phase then suddenly ends and suddenly, your
Suddenly they're in
sassy
Santa
little.
Ponza.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I can't get my head around that. You have a son in Santa Ponza. I will never get my head around that. I'll always be there. I'll be on the beach next door going, what are we doing
The
tonight?
glasses on,
Yeah, what are we doing tonight,
incognito.
guys? Are we all staying safe?
I know, and like that's what I love as well is that there is like chasing your own goal is really important because I
Yeah,
had this thing. I'm a coach, and there's this thing the coaching business be a six-figure, a multi-six-figure, a seven-figure coach. And I had, while that would be lovely, I had to realize that that isn't actually what drives me. That isn't my, and I'm not saying that I don't want it ultimately, but that
yeah,
isn't. I was chasing somebody at what I thought I should have. It should be, this seven-figure coach and all this. And I said, while it would be lovely, it wasn't my. So it's kind of make sure you're chasing your own dream and that you're not doing it because you think
yeah.
you should.
And I think you could have that, like we'll say, even on Instagram, you could end up in a situation where you're like chasing followers because you see somebody else that has 100,000 followers or something, and you're like, why haven't I there? And I'm doing all this work, and you could spend so much time like looking at other people that you're actually not looking at yourself at all. And I think I've had to learn that recently in terms of like kind of being on maternity leave in my head and watching other people that are at a different stage. Like, I wouldn't compare myself to like the principal of a secondary school. So why am
Yeah,
I
yeah,
comparing myself to somebody that's in a completely different phase of life and just kind of realizing that, well, what is it that I want to chase? And I think we'll say for me, it is I want to chase in terms of a job. I want a kind of a enough people to buy tickets to come to my stand up and enough listeners to listen to my podcast. It's not like, and if that turns into like they come to my stand up in Vicar Street for 4 nights, great. Or if it
yeah,
turns
yeah,
into our podcast gets to, be in the Tree Arena, great. But like that the kind of small goal is just to maintain kind of it's the small goal is like more of the same. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
have to
yeah,
be this
yeah,
huge goal out in
yeah,
the future. It's like I quite like what's happening at the moment. I would like this to continue at this pace and grow a bit. And I don't know. I think you can have fierce pressures on yourself for having a big,
yeah.
massive goal, and it always feels unachievable then.
Yeah, 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 and it is. And I know you're out there, and you're kind of you're public. And I suppose just what does getting in the picture mean to you? Like there's physically getting the picture, but there's kind of metaphorically getting into the picture of your life. Like what does that? When I say getting into the picture, what does that kind of bring up? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I suppose it means two things to me. The first thing it means is like being present in my own life, so to
Mm-hmm.
not be so kind of like, scrolling through other people's Instagrams or scrolling through other people's lives and not actually being physically present in the room with the people that are there with me, be it my husband or my kids or my mom and dad or whatever. So that's one thing, is like getting in the kind of, are you there day to day
Yeah.
doing, getting stuck in, or are you distracted? And I would say, success rate varies from day to day. You could be like absolutely 90% there on a Monday. By Friday evening, you're like, I am going into the toilet now for 20 minutes and nobody's to come near me. Like it varies. And then obviously getting into the picture physically is, that springs to mind. I've heard people say, get into the picture no matter what shape, size you are. Now, I've never not been in the picture, and I've been all the shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
And like, I sometimes look back at pictures and I think, oh my God, you thought that you were, the largest person in the room in that picture, and you weren't. And now look at you. Do you know what I mean? But I think I've always been, I find it very important. I want my little girl in particular, but my two boys as well, to always feel like I had full belief and confidence in myself, in my body, in my mind. I suppose particularly the body, like as in,
Yeah.
your body changes when you have three babies, your body changes
Yeah.
when you have three sections.
Yeah.
That whole kind of below the belly button area to me is just kind of a mystery area now. So much has happened down there. But like I've had to kind of retrain myself because of my little girl, that like if I get out of the shower and I'm feeling a bit like, oh God, feeling a bit floppy or bloated or whatever, that instead of being like, oh God, I'm gross,
Yeah.
that I'm like, look at me, I'm so strong. And you came out of my tummy, and this is the tummy that you came out of, and all of this kind of like having children has made me reframe my
Yeah.
approach to my own body. And again, Sharon, like some days it works. Some
Yeah.
days I'm like, you're a hot bit of stuff. Usually when I'm ovulating, it's like, oh my God, you're unbelievable. And then about 10 days later, it's like everything you've done is wrong. Like it's a
Yeah.
constant, like for a while, I think I was very into the notion of kind of body positivity, which
Hmm.
I do believe, we have amazing bodies and that they should be recognized as such. It doesn't matter whether they carried a child or not, they're amazing just for getting us from A to B. But then as well, I think there's a kind of a movement towards body neutrality, which is probably
Yeah.
more realistic and maybe a
Yeah.
little bit less toxic, because you could be
Yeah.
toxically positive about your body, whereas in the back of
Absolutely.
you could gaslight yourself about your own body. Whereas like the reality is we're all different shapes and sizes, and different shapes and sizes throughout our life. And like I'm not going to be my wedding weight now
Yeah.
because I've had three sections. Like if I was to stop doing absolutely all of the minding of my children and focus solely on going to the gym, maybe I'd get back there. But even when I was there, I wasn't happy. Like I look at my wedding
Hmm.
photos and I think, oh, there was more to be done there.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I know. I know.
you know what I mean? Like, so it's like I'm more about like we have to get to a point, like it's you don't have to be happy and loving your body every day, but I do think you have to respect it and be appreciative of what it's done, what it's capable of. Like we say, my dad was very, very sick last year. He had blood clots, he had bowel cancer, he was really on death's door, he was on the oxygen. Obviously, he had surgery and everything, but his body has fixed itself. Do you know
Yeah.
what I
I
mean?
know. I know.
Like
I
the
know.
clots are gone. So
Yeah.
that man is not on oxygen anymore. So, and he is a very large man, and like his body has been amazing. So you could look at that body from the outside and be like, oh, they're like that's not the ideal that's perpetuated, but his body has made him well. Like he's well now again. And I think if we can get into that space, like I definitely think I dabbled in toxic positivity for a while.
Yeah,
It
and
was
I'm
kind of
glad you
like,
brought that up, Laura,
yeah,
because I think there is that, and obviously I'm a body comp, and I am all about bracing yourself, But like for me, like people say, how did you manage to do it? Because I weighed myself worth on the scales for decades, mother God,
mhm,
and I wasn't in the pictures, and I was what I said to myself and what I made it mean. I was a good person if I was skinnier, and I was an awful person, and up and
yeah,
down the scales and all this stuff every day. But like so I see myself, I am two sizes bigger or whatever, 2 stone or three, whatever I am. Like I see that now. But it's not that I don't see it. It's not that I'm like, oh, I love my tummy, I
yeah,
love my
yeah,
thighs. Oh, they're lovely. I'm not willing to let them stop me from
right,
doing, usually getting out there, doing the life, living my life.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's not that I don't see it. It's not toxic. I do see it. And yes, I have to go up the larger size dress, but I'm not willing then to go around in, sack and cloth because I am the large, usually mean the large. So I suppose for me, yes, I see it. It's not toxic, but it's what I'm not making it mean, I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah. And I've kind of faced a new battle with it recently. Because of, we'll say, the sudden arrival into our lives of the concept of taking Ozempic or taking,
Mm.
injections that would suddenly apparently gift us thinness, right? Now, like I've read about them, I've seen TikToks about it, I've seen people that have, used it for weight loss, even though it's meant to be for diabetes. I've seen all of that. And so I'm suddenly faced with this kind of dilemma of like, oh my God, a thing exists that could make you skinny, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
should I be availing of it? And it's everywhere. It's obviously in my algorithm because it's just
Yeah.
bombarding me. I did a good lot of like not interested on TikTok the other day just to try and get
Yeah.
rid of it. Because I said it to my husband yesterday, I said, in no world am I going to take it. It's just not going to
Mm.
happen because, first of all, it's not meant for me. Second of all, I don't know enough about it. But third of all, I do know that it does take some of the joy away from eating. And
Mm.
I'm not going to inflict that into our lives. I don't
Yeah.
want to be that mom that's like, oh God, I can't eat that now because it's going to make me gawk. So
Yeah.
like it's the same way that I wouldn't go for any sort of surgery because it's like, no, I can manage my body and be happy with my body by doing a bit of walking and being, a little bit mindful of what I'm eating or whatever. But it's going to churn up an awful conversation for a lot of people because it's suddenly being kind of billed as this it can make you skinny. And like I see the ones on TikTok and it's like, we don't know their backstory. We don't know their mental relationship with food. You have to just be so, so
Yeah.
careful. And I think in our industry, because somebody said to me very early on in my career that to be on telly, you have to be skinny. And
Yeah.
like, that galls me
Yeah.
because I'm like, well, that's all wrong. Because to walk down the street, do I have to be skinny?
No.
No. To be empathic, do I have to
Yeah.
be skinny? No. To be a good person, do I have to be skinny? No. So, like, for me, and it was a man said it to me. And I'm like, I think it is important that we undo that as a concept. I've been on telly loads. And like, the happiest I ever was on telly was I was pregnant and I was in a series called The School in RT. And
Yes, I
it was
flipped
the
over it and I
first
saw it
time,
one day. It's
oh,
like, there's
stop
Laura.
it. The first time I ever looked at myself without that critical eye was
Mm,
then because I
mm,
was like, well,
mm.
I'm pregnant, like
Yeah.
as in I'm meant to be that shape.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's awful to me that somebody said to me and went into my little mind and said, you have to be skinny. Like, you don't. The reality is you don't. And more it'll be like, we had been on a kind of a train where it was becoming the norm to see people of all different shapes and sizes. My concern is that the dawn of these weight loss kind of injections and stuff will cancel that out for a while and that people will almost be like, well, why aren't you on it? I'll tell you why I'm not on it because
Yeah.
I don't like the sound of some of the side effects. And
Yeah.
like, I don't know enough about it. It's not tried and tested long enough for me. And I've had to kind of take myself aside just in the past couple of weeks and say, like, what is your attitude to this?
Yeah.
And are you going to go back to that person that thinks your worth is less because you've got a big
Yeah.
tummy? Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. And for me, you mentioned it earlier on as well. You said about, when you were like, we were all probably slimmer at some stage in our lives, but we weren't even being nice to ourselves then. So
Yeah.
my biggest problem with Ozempic is, again, everyone do you know what I mean?
Each
I
their
don't,
own, yeah.
but my biggest problem is, I'm working with clients, is seeing that it's never really about the weight, because if you get there, if you lose 2 stone in the morning, you're not going to actually be any happier, and
Yeah.
you haven't done the walks, you haven't done your life hasn't changed. You're just a smaller person with the same
Yeah. And you still have the
habits and the same
same
feelings and
brain.
the same,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So that's just, I suppose,
And
my kind of
also,
take on it.
I plead with anyone that is on it, just be open about being on it because you're doing damage to people if you're
Yeah.
claiming that it's your calorie deficit or whatever. Like, as in, if you're on it, just tell us. Just tell
Yeah.
us and be an influencer for that. Don't
Yeah.
be some magical sudden weight loss influencer that like is clearly using it. Like, just tell us and let's have that open kind of conversation about it. But it definitely made me start thinking about my body again in a negative
Mhm.
way. And I had to kind of say, no, no, no. Like,
Yeah.
I know what my path is in life, and I know what I want to invite in or not. And I know that that's not something for me. Now, if I'm in my 60s, who knows? Or, if it's proven to be totally, totally safe and, like, who knows in the future?
Yeah.
But for
I know.
now, it's not for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. 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 And is there anyone, Laura, that that either or somebody, either personally, or you kind of, that you really feel embodies getting into the picture of their life, either, that really embodies it? Is there somebody you kind of, that is in your life?
Well, I suppose I was going to say my mom, but she doesn't get in the picture. But it's not that she doesn't get in the picture because she thinks she looks silly. It's that she's too busy. But I suppose she embodies like all the things that are important to me in a person. She's, wise and kind and brave and crack, and she's 71 and she's still brave. And, that's very important to her to hold on to that. But she is literally the opposite of getting in the picture because she'd be like, no, no, I'm not getting in the picture. But she's, I suppose, like, I suppose every one of my friends that has become a mom, because like I was the first out of our friendship group to have babies, and to kind of see all the rest of my pals kind of transform into mams. We'll say we're just talking about the girls now, transform into
Yeah,
mams and see how they continually, show up for all the events, the preschool graduations, the toxic groups where you're sitting around with other moms, you all hate each other, but you're doing, clap handies, or you're doing, little rhymes, and everyone's having an awful time, but you're there for the babies. I suppose those, like the normal girls that I went to college with or that I went to Irish college with, to see us all now in our kind of late 30s, early 40s, and see how we are very much in the picture for our kids
yeah,
is a lovely thing, because that is our priority, is for our kids to feel like we were kind of always there. Even like, moms that I've seen battle with whether to do breastfeeding or formula, even those small battles from the day the baby was born, that constant feeling of like, am I doing right by the people in my life? As guilt ridden as that can be, I suppose in a way it is being in the picture, even if the
yeah.
picture is messy. It's kind of making all those decisions and just deciding what's right for you. It's kind of amazing to watch, because like I remember when we were wandering around Cork, at 3 o'clock in the morning looking for chips, and now,
And now you're in charge. You're
yeah,
you're
now
allowed home with these babies. I know,
yeah,
yeah,
because
that'd
you're
be
just like,
bad.
where's the adult? Oh, sugar, it's us. So, to see us all kind of come to that level in different ways. We've all had different roads. Some of us had very difficult roads to becoming moms, and or even to form relationships or whatever, and to kind of see that we're here now, and if that there was a picture of, we'll say, however many of us together, that we'd all be in it. We'd
Yeah,
all be in it, even though we'd all look at the picture afterwards and be like, I look wonky there, I look like a
yeah,
spud as my one off, and but we'd still be in it,
yeah, 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 yeah. It is, and it's because we all zoom into ourselves.
yeah.
Like, and I always think if we're as compassionate with ourselves as we are to other people,
Yeah,
wouldn't it be just because nobody you just don't see the double chin and the closed
no,
eyes in your friend's picture. You don't see it. So it's
I would never look at my
to have
friend's
that for
picture.
ourselves.
Yeah, I would never look at my friend's picture and be like, oh my God, look at the state of her. Whereas I'd
Oh,
look at
she'd be a
all the
lovely friend if
like
she was a
that.
stone lighter.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine? I wouldn't, because I'd be fucking starved.
So like we would never say that. So that's just one thing, is just even if we could just soften how we speak it to ourselves, because the way we speak to ourselves, we never ever. And I know it's like, oh, speak to yourself like you'd speak to a friend, and I know that can be thrown out there, but if we just even start catching it, it's just so powerful to
Like,
try and change it.
I don't know why our inner voice is programmed to be like a kind of a negative voice. Like, I do think
Hmm.
people don't realize you have to put a bit of retraining into making that inner voice kinder to
Absolutely.
yourself. Like, you can't just assume that and as well, because it's inside in your head, you think it's fact. I've definitely had to learn that my
Oh,
inner voice sometimes is not spitting facts. It's
yeah,
just on
yeah,
fact. But
yeah.
we have a friend of mine, we laugh and say that his inner voice is Ray Darcy on a bad day. Like a kind of a cranky day. Like, no, no, get him out of your head now. Like, as in, I just think you have to, oh yeah, be kind to yourself. Is no,
Yeah.
like, that's not toxically positive.
No, no, it is. It's
You
just
should be. You should
even
be
if
a
you
bit
just
sounder.
turn the dial down a little bit.
Just a teeny bit, yeah.
You sent me your profile picture earlier on, and I just absolutely loved it. It was just sass. It was confident. It was just incredible. And like you were dressed beautifully, jacket and whatever. Do you feel it? Like, do you feel more confident when is there anything you feel more confident wearing, or does style play a role in how you feel more confident, or is it just a kind of a vibe?
No, I think I do. And I think I've noticed it since I've had my third baby. In my head, I always wanted the third baby.
Yeah, yeah.
And thankfully we were able to have him.
Mhm.
And now that I know I'm finished, I feel like my style is starting to kind of come back a bit because
Yeah.
all the time along, I think I was, probably in a lot of maternity clothes still and feckin' awful florals and all this nonsense that they insist on putting in maternity wear. But now I kind of find that I'm starting to refined, we'll say, before I had babies, like stuff, clothes that I wanted to wear. They don't necessarily fit now, or I'm buying them in a bigger size or whatever. But like, I do feel good if I'm in my kind of, you know, what I would call my Laura clothes, like my
Mm.
real life kind of self. That, I have mom versions of my clothes where I'm sticking on a big massive jumper, from Pennies that has some cartoon character from 20 years ago on it, like an Angelica jumper. And I have those days where I feel like being that.
Yeah.
And then I have days where I feel like glamming up a bit. And I think I definitely feel like when I look at my wardrobe now, I feel like, oh, you're back. Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because for a while it was like, oh, I don't know what you're wearing, like, or
Yeah.
this is chaos. But now I feel I'm starting to get more comfortable in my clothes, more interested in my clothes again, and they are an extension of me. Like, as in, I don't want to be in. I like to be in bright, colorful stuff. I
Mm,
like to
mm.
be. I don't have very many glam occasions, but if I am going to a glam occasion, I will be glam. Like,
Yeah.
whereas. And now I have things in the wardrobe that I could pull out for that occasion. Whereas for a while it was all like maternity leggings that went up by my shoulders. Now I'd still wear them on a bad day. They're a great invention. But it's, yeah, and style is important. And I even like I started wearing the other day, I started wearing bangles. And I was like, oh, I want to be a bangly woman, a
Oh,
woman that wears bangles. You hear her coming, click, click, click. I was like, this is great. I was wearing the bangle, I'd say about 2 minutes when my little baby pulled it and
yeah.
broke it, and all the beads
Oh,
went flying everywhere. And I was like, this is why I'm not in the bangle phase yet. Because he's still in the could
and
choke.
the earrings, the statement
Yeah,
earrings
long
ripped out of your
and
ears.
it actually was a moment for me of kind of realizing you're not there yet. You
Yeah,
will
yeah.
be in a couple of years. You'll get your dangly earrings and your bangly sounds back, but calm down a while. Calm
But
down a while.
your nails are always fab.
My
Your nails
nails
are
are always
always fab.
done. Oh, the worst thing about the C-sections is having to get your shellac off. I'm
Oh,
like,
you
oh
take it
my
off.
God, please, please let me get it back on.
Yeah, I know
And
your
I
nails are always fab.
my nails like they we say they're kind of symbolic for me. Like when Polly was born, my first baby, like the day that I went to get my nails back on, that was a big day. And I was breastfeeding her, even though I wasn't enjoying it. And I hadn't
Mhm.
left her any milk. I went to get my shellac back on. I was bawling, crying by the time my husband collected me because I knew I hadn't left her enough milk. And on the way home in the car, he was like, Lord, this can't go on. He's like, we'll have to change it because this is too much pressure on you. So we
Mm,
decided to
mm.
combination feed at that point. But like the going back, putting on my nails was a bit like putting that armor back on again and
Yeah.
kind of strengthening up and kind of feeling like I'm ready for the world now again. Um, and I always remember that feeling of my shoulders just being up around my ears because I was
Yeah,
so worried that I hadn't
yeah.
provided for her. Whereas I'd be much less harsh on myself now. But that was that first baby, you wanted to do everything right.
Oh
But
God,
definitely
yeah,
not
absolutely.
everything right. Whereas now I'm like, oh, he's rearing himself, he's fine.
Yeah, it's lovely. There's a lovely thing about that as well because they are probably more chilled and more. They
Oh,
are
way
more
more
relaxed as
chill.
well.
But I say it all the time. Like, if you could be your kind of second or third baby mom self with the first one,
With
it
the
just
first,
wouldn't be so hard. But you can't, and you can't save anyone. Like, everybody has to go through that first time. It is the biggest change in your life. I can't come in and say, Era, look, don't worry about naps. They'll figure it out. Or, he doesn't need to be in the cot. Cuddle him in next to you. He's fine.
I
Like,
know,
you
I know.
can't do any of that because I remember being like, my little girl's naps are at 12 and they are at 4 and they must happen at this time. Whereas now with Freddie having a clue what time his nap is, he just
The,
drifts off,
yeah,
you know?
Gina Ford kind of like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Gina Ford, Super Nanny, all the ones. Oh, the baby-led weaning. I was like, we're doing pure baby-led weaning. There will be no spoon. There will be no puree. Whereas now I'm like, is he eating a bit of the curtain?
I know it is.
But it's just you're calmer. But the first you can fix it for anyone, and it is very difficult that first change. I'd love to fix it for people, but you can't. You just have to go through it. That's the only way. It's the only way out of it.
And are you, what I loved about you and what I, what I was drawn to asking you to come on this, and again, I'm so thankful and grateful that you did, was your realness. And I find like I would be not unauthentic. Like I would never come on and say like, oh, do ever do anything that is kind of misaligned or not me. But at the same time, I think there's a huge vulnerability around being real.
Mm.
Do you find that, or do you just
Yeah.
find, look, this is me, take me as I am, and there's freedom in that?
Well, I can only be myself. Like I've
Yeah,
done versions of myself that weren't fully real, and they
yeah,
never, like when you're on breakfast radio, you have to be a kind of a hey, how's it going? And
yeah,
like the version of yourself that give yourself the gawks, but you can't
yeah,
admit that to yourself at the time. You're like, no, I'm so real, and then you look back and you're like, ah. But the thing is, for me, we'll say with Instagram, I can only ever be myself on Instagram, and I need the Instagram people as much as they allegedly need me, like as in, I don't do really Instagram for public reward or,
yeah, yeah.
gain of followers or whatever. Like for when I had babies first and I was down living in Ballycotton, I don't live there anymore, but when I was down kind of in the country, I was lonely. Shane
Mm,
used to go off to work. My husband used to go off to work up in the airport business park. And so Instagram was a way for me to feel like there was other people out there. And that was the same during COVID. Now we did move and we were close to the city, but like it was the same during COVID to feel like there was other people out there. So my Instagram is more for me than it is for them. Like I feel the kind of connection through social media with some brilliant people, obviously with some absolute doses as well come into my
yeah,
inbox every now and again. But mostly I tell them to go away and they don't affect me as much anymore. But like I suppose I see a lot of fake people on Instagram, not fake people. It's just that they're putting across a front. And I need we'll say with babies, suddenly there's these people and they're fully put together and they have a whole outfit on and the baby is wearing a matching outfit to them somehow. There doesn't seem to be anyone crying. There's no puke on their clothes. And I'm like, this can't be real. Like,
yeah,
so, if I feel like, particularly with Freddie this time, I put all my emotions up on my Instagram, like, when you're bawling, crying the first few days, like with the hormones. I remember this time, Jade Goody's son was on Strictly Come Dancing, and I couldn't be consoled over
oh,
him.
I
I was
know, I
like,
know.
your mother
Yeah.
will be so proud. And I put that up on Instagram because I was like, I'm devastated. Like, I'm
Mm,
genuine. And I thought I
mm,
was really devastated. Looking back now, I
mm.
realized it was the hormones. But
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the same time, and he is a lovely boy, and she would be very proud of him.
Yes,
But
I know.
but I suppose I didn't see enough people that were kind of in the doldrums or were just be honest about it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you see at Christmas, everyone in their matching pajamas and all that. And that's fine. I do that as well. I put up pictures of our matching pajamas. But the reality is there's always somebody crying. I've probably given out to people just before the picture was taken and said, you need to look at the camera now properly. Let's let out the reality
yeah,
because otherwise we're all lying to each other. And I think women in particular need to not be lying to each other. It was the same with breastfeeding. Like if ever anyone wants to stop breastfeeding, they need to come talk to me because the guilt around stopping and people kind of saying like, oh, you have to breastfeed and breast is best and all of that. Like that's they're like, there were so many people saying to me, I love breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is amazing. And I'm like, you're
yeah,
lying, you're lying, you're lying. You have to tell me about the hard bits. And so that I feel like that's my job on Instagram is to be there to just show that it's not all what's being presented to you and you
yeah.
can
And I
see
love
to
that because, like I always say, every room I go into, the more we share, the more we see that we're actually more similar than we are different. Instead of
yeah
everyone trying to put on this polished thing, like I was at a talk recently, one lady there had sold her company for 12 million, and you're kind of going, oh my god, like she's so successful, she has to have her shit together. And then
mm,
I was just kind of doing a talk, and I was just saying, hands up, genuinely, who here that did not want to come today because they had nothing to wear, nothing fit them. They just, or they could pretend the child was sick, they could pretend COVID was great for that, you could pretend
yeah
that, you know, and then nobody's really care because that's great. And then I saw her at the corner of her eye putting up her hand. Do you know what I mean? So I think the more
yeah
real we are, the more I would say the
totally.
more similar we are, the different.
And to stop pitting each other against each other, like that's what drives me cracked. Like there we'll say, when like a load of presenters were leaving 2FM or whatever, and it's like, it's like, oh, she must be thinking, it's pitting the women against each other. It's kind of like, oh, what's she up to? Oh, she's doing this now. All of this, like, why can't we all function within our space? Why do we have to be pitted against each other? It's the same in the podcasting world. Like, as in, there are millions of podcasts. They can all
Yeah,
exist. They can all have
yeah,
their place.
yeah.
You don't need to be comparing. You don't need to be beating anyone. Like, that was a big thing in the radio. There's an awful lot of competitiveness in the radio
Mhm.
between radio stations and stuff. And it kind of is fueled on that kind of toxic, like, we're going to beat them in the ratings, blah, 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 blah. It's an awful mentality that has
Yeah,
kind of seeped down into the world. And I just think everyone needs to, as we said at the start, just be in your lane, work within your space, stop comparing yourself, but also stop, stop kind of holding all the power. Like, you're not going to lose your power by sharing somebody else's post or
yeah,
sharing
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
else's work. Like, you could gain so much by opening up that community as opposed to kind of trying to keep it all to yourself. Like, it should be more open, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, yeah, I love the. But I know it's kind of that saying was it a rising tide raises all boats, and I
Yeah.
genuinely believe that because people say to me, "Oh my God!" I remember one day it was, and it's very interesting because it does come back. There was this girl reached out to me from Canada. She was a style coach, wondering if she could chat to me about style coaching. She's thinking of setting up her own business. She was from Cork, and I was kind of going, "Yeah, no problem. Let's jump on a call." And it's funny because other people say to me, why are you why are you, she's a competitor, why are you helping her? And it's so funny because actually afterwards I found out I didn't have any, she's actually one of my best friends. And she
Okay.
was like, she was so appreciative of it. And I think that's driven by fear. And I think the more, I think the more we are kind of, that we do, and I think when you own your own, I think the way when you start owning yourself and you start feeling more confident in yourself, I
Yeah.
think that's when you're able to do that. Whereas when you're fearful and you're looking over there and you're looking here and you're so fearful that other people might pass you out or they might get. Whereas I think when you start owning yourself and owning being comfortable in your own skin, I think that's
Uh,
when you can really
It's a confidence thing.
support people.
It's a confidence thing. It's like, I'm confident in what I'm doing, and I'm so confident in it that I'm okay to hold you up as well. I'm okay to give you support, or like, as in, there's an awful, it's awful if you're confident in your thing as long as nobody else is in your patch. Like,
Mhm.
that's
Mm,
terrible.
mm,
And I
mm,
think
mm.
we're all very guilty of tearing each other down as opposed to shouting our support for people. And look, there's doses everywhere as well. Like, we don't have to talk about them. You don't have to pick up the dose. Let them off to their own device.
So what, I suppose, is there anything, any kind of mindset shift or anything that, anything that you found that worked for you or anything that you would kind of like to share with somebody that is kind of hesitating in getting into the picture, either or being seen in, either
Yeah.
physically or metaphorically in their lives? Is anything that,
I think it's just, don't waste your time on shite. Like,
mm,
get
mm,
that put in a cup. No, but like, as in, like, you could waste all your life kind of comparing yourself as a mom, as a friend, as a wife, as a partner, as somebody working in the arts. You could waste a lot of time actually not doing stuff. All you're doing is sitting there hating on other people, being jealous of other people's work, wondering why it's not happening for you. You have to kind of just get stuck into your own life. And if it helps, mute post and stories is a great
mm,
button on Instagram. Like, as in, you can still support somebody, but if they're driving you cracked, mute them.
yeah,
Like, they
love
won't
it.
realize they still have the gift of you in their numbers. So you're not doing, but you're protecting yourself. And that there are times in life where you don't just have to go along with whatever is being said. It's like me muting the Ozempic stuff. I do
Mm,
that.
mm,
That's an act of self-care.
yeah,
Like, so if there's something kind of holding you back from focusing on what it is you want to focus on, then just get rid of it. Just,
yeah,
put it aside, and don't, make sure you're not misplacing your energy. So actually all of your energy is going into the doing the thing you want to do, as opposed to hating on others who are doing it. And as well, be curious. If you feel that
mm,
little jealousy
mm,
kind of
mhm,
rise up in you, be curious. Why is it? And it's probably because they're doing more than you.
yeah,
So if that's what that feeling is, then you need to get the finger out and put a bit more effort in. Like, a lot of professional jealousy is because you're aware that they've surpassed you in some way.
yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? So,
yeah. And
like,
I love that. I kind of get excited when you get, because sometimes it is that they have something that you didn't even know you
Yeah.
wanted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So be curious about all of your thoughts. Like, you don't have to spend all day and all night questioning them, but be curious. Are they fact? Like, is the voice in your head that telling you you're a big fat fool? Is that true? No. Be curious about that. Also, why can't you be a fabulous fat person? Like as
Mm,
in, just be a little bit just be a little bit curious about all of your feelings and see like are they still the same? Because certainly 10 years ago me is
yeah,
very different from now, and 2 minutes ago me is very different from now, and that's okay. And also to make sure you surround yourself by people that are willing to give you the space to change. We don't all have to be the same. I don't have to have the same thoughts that I have 10 years ago. My friends don't have to see, oh well, Laura always thinks this. Laura
yeah,
doesn't always think anything. Laura
yeah,
says things and then she might change her mind. It's the roller coaster of being me.
yeah. I know. Yeah, you get to do you.
I often like to make a really strong stance in something and then spend weeks climbing back down from it and going, actually, no, I didn't.
And that's actually something really important as well, because that's something I suppose I felt that stopped me from speaking. Because it's like, what happens if I change my mind? What happens if I don't feel that? You know what I mean? What happens if I change my mind? What happens if I? And you're kind of going, we're allowed to change. You know what I mean? Somebody wrote a
Totally.
post 10 years ago and they're crucified for it. You're kind of going, we're allowed
Yeah.
to change, evolve, and grow, and so do our thoughts.
And a girl got onto me on Instagram the other day. I can't remember what the original thing was about, but the last sentence was like, the next thing you're going to be going to the gym. And I was like, oh my God, this girl, if I go to the gym, she's going to be like raging with me
Yeah.
that I didn't stay my chubby, happy self. And so it was a real awakening for me of like, there's always going to be people that you can't do right by. So you can
Mm.
only actually do right by yourself and your family. The only other piece of advice I'd give is keep your inner circle small, because I'm
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
desperate for letting in doses. Like
Yeah.
keep protection of yourself, your family, your life. You don't have to have 30 friends. You don't have to have 30 close friends. All you really need is two or three really, really good ones. And that's living. That's the success of living. You're in your like 30s, 40s. It's different when you're 20 and you're like, I'm friends with everyone and there's so
Yes.
much
Yes.
drama. All that drama is so brilliant when you're 20. It's like, oh my God, did you hear what happened? There comes a point in your life where you don't want any of that drama anymore. So if these people are coming into your life and bringing drama, you just tell them, head off, go away. I don't need it. Try and keep your peace. Peace is
Yeah.
is the most important thing.
Thank you so much, and Laura. Where can people find you?
Well, you can find me in the Marina Market most days. No, you can
Yeah.
find. I'm on Instagram at Laura Lols Lots. It's not the greatest name that ever was, but I feel if I change it now, people would riot. But maybe I will change because you can
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Um, but mainly, I'm on the Red Raw podcast with my bestie Rob
Oh,
Heffernan.
I love your relationship. I love
Oh,
it,
he's
love
a
it, love
great
it.
bit of stuff. So, we used to be on breakfast radio together, and then they got rid of him, and therefore I left. So now we have a podcast, and it's out every Monday at 7 a.m. Actually, I'll let you in a little secret. It actually goes live at 10 to 7.
Oh,
So there you go. If you're up super early, and there's like about a back catalog of 30 episodes at this stage, so you can get stuck in and catch up. But you don't need to have listened to them all, but please
yeah.
do.
I love it. And will you be getting into the picture on this is my board from the previous
Yes.
year of all my getting the picture. So will you be getting into the picture on the 19th of August? And I look
I
forward to seeing you
absolutely
posting.
will. I'm trying to think where I'll be. I think I might be in a cabin in Kerry on the 19th of
Oh,
August. So
fine.
if I
Well,
am,
it's all about as you are in the day, because that's really
yeah,
important. You said it earlier on. Some days I'm in my bloody sweatpants. Some days
yeah,
I'm in my leggings. And before I felt this pressure of going, oh, I can't go to the local shop if I don't look done
yeah.
up. And that's absolutely nonsense, because some days I'm dressed up, some days I'm not. I would get done with the Trades Description Act of being a stylist some days,
Yeah, I
and I'm
know.
okay. And I'm
But
okay with that.
I'll tell you what, Sharon, this morning when I had to drop the kids to camp, and I was like, I must go back on now. I must go back home now quick and get my makeup on for this. And then I was like, no, of all of the podcasts, we don't need no makeup for this. So I'm very much
Mhm.
barefaced and as I am. And that this is how you'll find me most days. And I might emerge into a glam era, but I'd say I'll be a very glamorous old lady. I
Yeah.
just
Oh,
stay
yeah.
in my sweats until then.
So, yeah, and I say, you were a big fan of O'Malley as well. I love all your
Yeah.
O'Malley jackets, and Maeve, we're going to have Maeve on as well.
Oh,
So I'm
she's
looking forward
great.
to
I
seeing Maeve.
always, that's my, oh, there's my bit of advice. If O'Malley is ever selling anything, make sure and have your alarm set. You got to strike early with them.
Oh, yeah,
That first season release, get the alarm on, girls. It's the only way to get the blazer.
absolutely. So, Laura, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Genuinely,
Sharon.
it's been absolutely a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to Get in the Picture with Sharon Hubbard. I would love if you could rate and review the show, and please share with all the amazing women in your life who could do with getting into the picture of their life, knowing that they are enough as they are, perfectly imperfect. For more information on the Get in the Picture movement, make sure you're following me on Facebook, Sharon Huggard, and Instagram, Sharon Huggard_. Tune in next week. Chat soon. Bye.